This is Jacob from Unlittle Me, and today I want to talk to you about how we can get over our feelings of low self-worth. How can we handle these feelings, basically? I came to a realization quite recently, okay, and this is on the topic of our inner beliefs, okay, what we essentially believe about ourselves and what we can do to actually, obviously, handle these feelings of low self-worth, and what we can do to become conscious of these inner beliefs that we haven't recognized that is deeply ingrained into our very being. I'd like to begin by saying that right from the get-go, right from the start, when you were very first born, okay, you were a fucking sponge. You were a sponge to the environment, and you absorbed the negative energy of all the people around you in the negative environment. You didn't have any control over what your parents said to you. Essentially, you aren't in control of this, okay? So now we don't actually realize that these things actually happen right from the get-go, and we actually instead we end up becoming adults where we don't actually understand why we have become such a negative person, why we are so negative now that we're an adult, okay, and we just don't understand this about ourselves. So essentially, the reason why you are living in such negativity is because you were conditioned this way, okay? This is all part of the conditioning you went through your childhood, and right up until you're this adult now, you actually ended up with these inner beliefs, these beliefs about yourself that limit you and hold you back from getting what you really want, from actually being able to achieve what you want in life. And this was a huge realization for me. And the reason why I'm talking about trying to handle these feelings of low self-worth is because this is something that's so personal to me, and it's such a big realization that I've made about myself. I can't hold back but share it to you guys, okay? In the last maybe few days, okay, I've had just this incredible motivation, okay? I've had just this motivation just enter my life, and I don't even know why. And I think maybe the reason why I got this motivation was because there was just one day earlier this week where I jumped off a 10-meter cliff into water, and it was at that point where I was facing a massive fear barrier. Okay, I felt that barrier of fear really, really strongly, and I jumped from that cliff a couple of times, and I basically overcame that fear, okay, temporarily. And in that moment of jumping off the cliff, I felt just an intense feeling of presence, of the running script in the back of my head just quieting down. And as I was falling down into the water, I could not think one goddamn thing. And it is also about this running script in the back of our minds that also contribute to a lot of our negative emotions. And from actually jumping off this cliff, I actually ended up finding out that, holy shit, I am actually capable of so much more. Why am I holding myself back? I've been living so long of holding myself back, making excuses for myself as to why I can't do something, okay? And this was a belief inside myself, an inner belief that I held so strongly to inside myself that I didn't even realize it, okay? And this is where I want to actually talk to you about how we can use the power of consciousness in order to actually discover these inner beliefs that are happening on an unconscious level, on a level where you are not aware of these beliefs happening. And so we are unaware of these beliefs happening on an unconscious level. So what basically happens when we are unconscious? What tends to happen? Well, basically what tends to happen is that we are not aware, we cannot see, we cannot perceive, we cannot feel, we cannot think. This is what happens when, basically someone is rendered unconscious. And so what's happening inside you from every morning you wake up, every day you live, you are running a script that has been conditioned inside you. You're running this script and you're not aware of this script. And this is what I mean by your beliefs running on a very unconscious level. And you need to use the power of consciousness in order to find these inner beliefs that you have been conditioned, with. So think of unconsciousness like a dark room, a pitch black room where you cannot see anything, okay? And your objective, your goal is to use the power of consciousness in order to actually shine the light on where these inner beliefs are coming from, okay? Think of consciousness like a flashlight, and you're using it in order to find things in the room that can help you escape from this unconscious mindset. Essentially, you want to basically flash the light on the keys to the door that will help you escape that black room where you cannot see anything. Okay, very poetic, I know, but I really enjoy to use kind of poetic analogies in order to describe as best as I can about how we can practice becoming more conscious. So yeah, essentially the big realization that I came to in the last week or so is that basically I found out that I really hold myself back. I really do hold myself back. And I believe these things about myself that are false. And what really triggered it was actually that 10-meter jump from that cliff, okay? And I think what would be a really good idea for you to do is to do something in your day, do something new to shock your body out of that running script and realize that you're actually so much more capable of doing things than you actually are. Let's just take my example for a moment. I have for such a long time had this never-ending anxiety about going to the gym and basically dying at the gym. I know that this is a very irrational kind of way of thinking, but as you guys all who are following my blog basically may already know that anxiety can be very irrational and make you believe things that aren't necessarily true or aren't necessarily correct. And since becoming conscious of these inner beliefs, I've ended up becoming more fit, more active, coming to the beach, and also working out every morning before I go to work. I actually now wake up earlier than I normally do, and I actually just have started, having a quick workout. Okay, well, not necessarily so quick, but maybe a 10 to 15 minute workout. I'm doing push-ups, I'm doing dips, I'm doing pull-ups, and I do it with such an emotion that I am capable of all these things, okay? And you guys with anxiety who are fearful of, having a heart attack or just falling on the floor dying, understand that, that necessarily may not be true, and you may have already had the battery of tests from the doctors on this and that, and when you're checked out, all cleared out, and told that you just have anxiety, you need to really embrace that diagnosis and understand that it really does actually come down to your inner beliefs that are holding you back. Now, it was never your fault or my fault that we have been brought up in such a negative environment and into these conditions, okay? A big secret of mine that I have to come to deal with is basically, domestic violence in my childhood, and, coming up, being brought up with a lot of like shouting and a lot of just turmoil in the household, really was actually a big part of my life. A big part of my life was actually surrounded by this turmoil, this chaos. And what tends to happen is that your brain tends to kind of like screen these memories out, okay? And you may not necessarily think that these things were actually so much of a big deal for you back in the time you were growing up. You may have been through a lot of bullshit in your life that has affected you on a very deep level, but you may not necessarily remember these things right now. And it's quite normal that you actually end up having this kind of like this amnesia to these traumatic events. You end up having this amnesia to it because of how traumatizing experiences were. You need to understand that these memories are actually ingrained very deeply inside your body, and it's not just a memory inside your mind, but it's also a memory inside your body. And you need to resurface it and understand it, and recognize that these traumatic events may have contributed to these very limiting beliefs about yourself, okay? And for myself as well, I went through maybe a couple of years throughout my teenage years of emotional abuse. For a long time, I actually thought, oh, this didn't really affect me. This didn't really do anything to me necessarily. But the reason why you feel that way is because your brain has screened it out. It's like some kind of instinctive measure, a protective measure from your brain that screens these memories out. And you need to really keep using the power of your consciousness, and just using your logical part of your brain to actually resurface these memories and actually go through them and understand where you got these limiting beliefs from, okay? And that's where I say that you're using the flashlight, the power of consciousness, to discover these unconscious beliefs about yourself, okay? And why is this so important? It's so important because for so long you go such a large part of your life thinking, why am I not normal? Why do I feel this way and yet other people don't? And you're so desperate for an answer, you need to give that answer to yourself. You need to provide that answer to yourself. And once you have that answer, you're kind of awakened in a way. You have this kind of spiritual awakening where you understand where you're at right now. And you can now understand that this is where I'm at the present moment. What can I do right now in this present moment to get me towards where I want to go in the future, what I want to do for the future. You need to basically understand where you're at right now in order for you to scrap who you were before and become someone that you want to be in this present moment so that you can get to that place in the future, okay? And this was just huge for me, okay? And as I said, I'll say it again, I said to myself, why do I limit myself? Why do I believe that I'm not capable of so much more? Okay, and you need to ask that for yourself as well. You're so much more capable of so many more things than that you're giving yourself credit for. Okay, you need to give yourself a lot of credit, and you need to be able to actually shift into this new state of being. Okay. So I hope this really helped for you guys understand your inner beliefs on the topic of handling these feelings of low self-worth in order to really take advantage of who you are now, understanding what brought you to this place, the conditioning on an unconscious level of what brought you to this place, so that you can really make the changes now to get to where you want to be in the future, so that you can take advantage of what you are now in order to grow, develop, become the guy or girl you've always wanted to be. And, stop limiting yourself. So believe that you can do it, okay? What really drove my motivation in the last week is that I jumped off a 10-meter cliff. I did it. I didn't die. It was scary, don't get me wrong. It was fucking scary, but I did it. And yeah, it's just about shocking your body into actually realizing that you're capable of so much more, so that you can adopt new inner beliefs that you are now conscious of. You need to be conscious of these new inner beliefs and don't sink into that state of unconsciousness again, basically. Take care. Have a good one.